on the show Afterburn, which also nobody knows, it's out, but it's out there on DVD. It was a Laura Dern film. It was a true story of F-16s and how when they first came out, they were all fly-by-wire. It was the first plane that was all electronic controls. So you move the stick here, electrical signal goes out to motors that move the ailerons and the flaps, and as opposed to a mechanical cable. So what they suffered from was wire chafing issues. The instruments were all electronic, everything was electronic, and sometimes you would have pilots flying these planes and they'd go into a cloud bank, and because of the wire chafing, the wires for the instruments might short and they'd lose what was going on their screens, and they might come out of a cloud inverted. And if you're inverted and heading toward the ground, because of the G-force that you're feeling as a pilot, you wouldn't know it until you're out of the cloud and there's the ground. And several pilots were killed that way. So the F-16 model that we built, it was up to pretty much myself and Dan Brown and Brian Wright how we were going to build these things and what we were going to do, and it would be as creative as we wanted it to be, you know, and we'd try and get as much into that model as we could. We built a bunch of these F-16 models that we could crash into the ground or fly on wires, but it was all location work. A guy named Dave Kuklish built a rig that could be put between two large lift towers. So drive the towers out, set them up, and then he had a cable rig that would go between them, and it was a 9-wire rig that we could hang the plane from. And then we had remote controls on the plane so we could move the flaps around and whatnot. And got some great shots of the plane flying by camera. So you'd have a guy, with a Mitchell sitting here and fly the plane past for a lot of these shots. And then when we crashed into the ground, Joe Viscosa came out, for blowing it up, which was nice. We did a Breakaway Canopy, and I went over to Hollywood Breakaway and said, hey, we want to do this bubble-shaped canopy. And the guy just looked at me and laughed. It's like, you're never going to get it out of the mold. I had not done Breakaway before. It's got a bubble that comes around like this, and then because it's this kind of complex compound curve, we had the freedom to try this, and we cooked some of this stuff up because it was, this low-budget movie that nobody was really thinking too much about. They just let us go and cooked it up and just kind of slushed it around in the mold, and we were able to get some really nice, after the 6th or 8th time, get some nice clean pulls out of the mold, and then Breakaway comes out, and sometimes it'll fog up and you need to take like lacquer thinner to the outside of it to just clean it and get rid of the fog on it. But we got some really nice clean looking Breakaway canopies that worked. So it was just kind of fun to experiment with stuff like that. When I was over at Stargate, we had just a ton of creative freedom on stuff. We worked on a Poison video for the band Poison, and they shot a bunch of stuff of Bret Michaels singing down in front of a warehouse, like in downtown LA in the middle of the night. And they had us do a miniature building facade. And, what else do you do in a hairband video? You blow stuff up. So we cut up, made some custom window mullions and fire escapes. There's a big bricked up doorway. And then we made like some metal doors that we made out of aluminum foil. And we just kind of had the freedom to, let's try this out, let's try that out, and they shot at super high speed. They shot at like 500 frames a second with a 16mm camera, and the stuff all looked great. I took an A-scale Jaguar model and, built the model and then put a bunch of stuff inside the hood and, put a black powder bomb underneath the engine block. And at 500 frames a second, it looks amazing. The hood flies off, chunks fly out of the engine compartment, and it moved really well. And the fire blowing out of the windows in the building looked phenomenal. We did a scale dumpster, trash dumpster out of lead, and put a black powder bomb and gasoline inside that, and blew the thing apart. So it was pretty sturdy actually. Lead will bend, but it doesn't tear. So the sides bulged out and the tops blew open on it, and debris flew out of it. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.